I am super excited to be here today. We are going to get a tour of Cisco's newly designed office in Manhattan. Now, this is a special office because it was designed specifically for hybrid work. And Cisco did that using the latest in collaboration and smart building technologies. And they were able to save a lot of costs because they were doing it that way. Now, we're going to talk about all that and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But if you are an MEP, an owner's rep, an architect, or building something new or redesigning, you're going to want to watch today's video. So with that, let's go upstairs. Let's go meet the mastermind behind this, Bob Cicero, and he's going to give us a tour. Bob.
Sal.
Good to see you, man.
Great to see you.
Now, I've known you for a long time, but you got to tell me, what did you do to this office space? This place is absolutely beautiful. How did you guys redesign this for hybrid work?
When we think about hybrid work, we fundamentally believe you're going to reposition real estate to truly do hybrid. And we talk about repositioning real estate. We took this 44,000 square feet and we turned the model from the standpoint of 30% we space and 70% me to 70% we and 30% me. So when we think about that, that's a fundamental shift in terms of the way that you think about designing and building space. And that led to us having 92 collaboration areas on this floor plate. But we also need to be grounded in some key goals for us from the standpoint of thinking about new space. This is our new real estate platform from a Cisco standpoint. The first thing we thought about was, what does that true hybrid agile space experience look like? We also wanted to align around Cisco's net zero goals. Cisco's gonna be net zero by 2040 for all scopes of emissions. And the third thing we wanted to do was actually think about health and wellness. When we think about health and wellness, we want to think about maximizing natural daylight, sensing the environment around us from an air quality standpoint. And also when we want to think about all of these data elements together, we think the fourth opportunity we have is to truly digitize real estate. When we think about real estate, it's been a fixed construct. We never really had data about this space. And what we've built here, we now have 5,000 data points that we're pulling up out of this environment to provide a digital view from a real estate standpoint.
Now, if I'm a customer, can I actually just engage you to help me with my new building design?
Absolutely. So when we think about building design, in order to engage the Smart Building Studio, just email smartbuilding@cisco.com and it will contact one of the smart building experts that we have on my team.
Okay, and from a building design standpoint, when should we get you guys engaged?
The earlier the better from a building design standpoint. Typically look at schematic design phase of projects to be able to engage with the Smart Building Studio.
This place looks amazing. I have never been in an office that looked like this before. Give us an idea of what went into the thinking and the design of this Grand Community Lounge.
So as we think about repositioning this real estate, we also wanted to figure out, how do we bring people back together? And this is the inspiration behind the Grand Community Lounge here. And an overall inspiration for our space, if you think about where we are right now, we're in Midtown Manhattan. Think about the transportation inside of Manhattan. It's subway based, there's bridges everywhere. So when we think about our design inspiration here, you'll see filaments throughout simulating the New York City subways, which we all use to get around New York. But then also when we start thinking about Cisco, the bridge to possible, all the names of the rooms that we'll see today are actually named after bridges in this area.
I do have to mention too, the windows. That was one of the first things that I noticed walking in here. The old conference rooms, they were always against the windows. So if you wanted to look out to Manhattan, you had to be in a conference room. Now, everything is pulled away. The windows are wide open. Can you give us a little idea as far as why you did that? What was the design consideration for that one?
So if you look at where we are in Manhattan, we have the Empire State Building to the east, we have Hudson Yards to the west, Madison Square Garden to the south. We have some fantastic visuals here from an office standpoint. And we look at our new Talent and Collaboration Center here is that we wanted to be able to expose all of these great monuments from a New York City standpoint for everyone to enjoy. So we moved all the conference rooms off the walls. We also wanted to open up and have an open air feeling in here. So you'll see in this Grand Community Lounge, we went and opened up the ceilings to the deck above, and then we're maximizing the natural daylight that we can enjoy in terms of getting sun from the east or the south, given where we are in Manhattan.
That's so cool, because I mean, the natural light in an office like this, I remember being in here before, And it was dark, it was dingy. Now the windows are open, I mean, it's bright, and the way that these lights are designed too, there is a ton of light that's in here. Let's go in, talk to me a little bit about what Cisco was doing around the green initiative when you guys are building that, because I know that was another really important feature of this.
So we think about maximizing daylight. We have that 100% automated here. We are sensing how much sun is coming in, make it visually comfortable for all of us, but also thermal comfort as well. And we think about the lights, the fact that we moved everything here over to Power over Ethernet. Power over Ethernet does not require to be run in pipe and conduit. So we're able to remove thousands of pounds of steel in the form of pipe and conduit in the ceiling. We're able to remove hundreds of pounds of copper as well, because we're now using category cable to power and control every single thing that you see in here.
Well, that's awesome. So Bob, you're telling me that every single one of these lights is powered from an Ethernet switch?
That is right. So when we look at from an Ethernet standpoint, it's 90 watt Power over Ethernet. We think about the standard 802.3 BT. So every single one of these endpoints is not only receiving power, but then you get the control aspect as well. And when you think about that, we've moved everything to data now. So now we can sense the entire environment here. So you'll see sensors throughout, just not standard light sensors like occupancy and daylight harvesting, but also air quality sensors that are actually on the lighting network, so we can sense the environment properly.
All right, so we just saw all the lights that were outside here. And Bob, are these the drivers? Is what powering the lights outside here? And from what it looks like, I mean, there's just Cat 5 coming in here. There's no Romex cable, anything. How is that working?
Exactly, Sal. So when we moved everything over to PoE, it's standard category cable. So the cable plant that we have here is category 5E, actually with 22 gauge conductors in there. And when we use that, we're able to terminate all of those loads above there. So we have two partners in here, Igor and as well as Molex. So the role of those drivers is to not only take in the category cable with the Power over Ethernet, but that becomes your distribution point for all of the sensing that we have in the entire environment and the data aggregation from the standpoint of pulling all the pieces of the data out of the environment.
Yeah, and that's why I think the ceiling looks so beautiful too, because you don't have any of the conduit up there anymore. Everything is just low voltage wire and we spray over it, right?
100%. So in the world, from a National Electric Code standpoint, we're a Class 2 limited power source, Power over Ethernet is. Given the fact that we have open air ceilings like this, we don't have any more pipe and conduit in place. Without that, we're now able to have these beautiful ceilings above. And the reality is that the K13 acoustic spray that you see on the ceiling, that's actually hiding all the cables above that, because all of this is now low voltage. It's no longer line voltage in a typical build environment.
Okay, so from a cost standpoint then, do you know roughly how much Cisco was able to save by doing it that way and not having all that Romex and conduit in the ceiling?
Well, there's a combination of cost elements, but when you think about just in a pure context of running low voltage cable and moving the entire environment over to the PoE, there's absolutely a cost savings there. And for us at Cisco, it was roughly 5%. But then you start thinking about all the other possibilities of consolidation of multiple systems. So for us here at Cisco, we were able to use an air quality sensor on top of the lighting platform versus putting an air quality sensor in. Likewise, when we think about occupancy from an occupancy standpoint, we're stitching together multiple data sets. We're taking Meraki surveillance cameras that, yes, are surveillance, but they're also counting people. We're taking Wi-Fi access point data as well to look at open areas like the Grand Community Lounge. And then inside of the conference rooms, we're using the Webex RoomKit camera to grab all the people count data in there. And at the desk level, the Desk Hub is providing all of that capabilities from a people count standpoint. So those 4 pieces of data is what we're stitching together for the occupancy journey here at Penn.
That's really cool. Now, I know you brought up conference rooms, so why don't we go try and find an open conference room and see what they look like here. So, Bob, before we actually go to a space, tell me about this. Is this something that I would come to in the beginning of the day to try to figure out where I want to go, or what are we doing with these maps that are always visible around the office?
It's great, Sal, because when we think about the 4th goal we had was the opportunity to digitize real estate. This is that digital view of the 44,000 feet that we're standing in right now. So for us at Cisco, not only have we digitized the space, we now have presented the opportunity of the 5,000 data points to be displayed to our end users. So when we look at this, red means it's occupied, it's a busy day today. Orange means that within 15 minutes, there's gonna be someone in that room. And of course, green means it's available. So from an employee standpoint, we'll start our day here, and actually, Sal, let's go book a space.
Sure.
So we'll book that.
What's really cool here though is when you clicked on that space, I get some data here too. So I get the room air quality, the temperature, the humidity. You can make sure there's no people in here. And are we pulling this data automatically? How are we getting that data?
We're actually pulling that data from the navigator that we saw in the other rooms. It's a consistent end user experience here, no matter what size room we're in. So you'll notice that now turned blue. That will turn blue and it'll stay blue for 4 minutes. So it's a held space. So we now can walk there. And once we walk in there, the camera on the Webex endpoint will pick us up, and that room will then turn red for an occupied state.
That's awesome. So why don't we go check out one of these rooms? Tell me about this conference room. When I first walked in here, I mean, it is super, super quiet. You could almost hear a pin drop in here. The other thing I noticed too is this table. It's an interesting design and it's very matte. Can you give me a little bit about the room dynamics here and what you guys are trying to accomplish?
Sure. When we think about design now, when we thought about all the rooms we built here, we really wanted to think about what we were going to do in that room first, what kind of work we thought we were going to accomplish, also, of course, with hybrid in mind. So we designed the actual experience first, then we picked the furniture selection, and we'll talk about the shape of the table, and then we put the walls around it. That's a fundamental different way to design space versus trying to put technology into a space that the walls were already drawn. So when we think about all these pieces coming together inside this space, you look at this table and you mentioned the table shape and size. From a table shape standpoint, it's important that everyone has a face on the video. So as we turn this table and made it pointed at the end there, now everyone from a camera perspective has a face for everyone on the remote side. Again, thinking about everything hybrid. We also thought about the table finish, and you think about cameras, you don't want reflection inside of cameras, so it's a nice matte finish from a table standpoint. And then even coming down so far to looking at the end of this table and noticing that there's this point here. So when we think about this point, we have a point here because we don't want anyone sitting here because the camera will not be able to frame me up. So those are the types of elements that we thought about in terms of designing this space, down to the remote side of it. Presenter track in the room, as well as adjunct whiteboard here in terms of the opportunity for me to whiteboard here inside of this space being shared into the content channel. You mentioned the room acoustics. When we think about room acoustics, we did nothing special from an acoustic treatment standpoint. We had two fundamental goals in terms of thinking about the quality of the sound in the space. One is the walls go all the way to deck. So it goes from the floor all the way to the deck above us and the concrete floor there. The other piece we looked at was from the standpoint of a gasketed door. And if you think about where we are in the middle of New York City, we're on the 9th floor, low inside of a building, we will hear sirens. And with the capabilities that we have in every Webex room kit, we are filtering out those siren noises. So we'll hear them here, we're obviously on site, but for our remote participants, we are super interested in from a hybrid standpoint, they will not hear any of that noise disturbance.
This paneling over here, tell me about this paneling a little bit here.
It's just simple acoustic fabric treatment, and it depends on the amount of glass that's in the room. But this is 2 walls of treatment in terms of looking around how does the sound not bounce around, that it will be absorbed by the fabric on the walls.
And Bob, you're actually able to measure the noise in here, right? So other people can see what the noise level inside the room is? Absolutely.
So when we look at the opportunity for us to measure the ambient noise inside the room for all of us that are in the room, but it's also very important when we think about the WELL standard, and we are WELL health safety rated here in this new space. Not only is it ambient noise, but we're also sensing temperature, humidity, as well as VOCs, volatile organic compounds.
So is that where we were getting that map data we were looking at before? Is that data coming from this touch panel here?
100%. So we're harvesting all that data out of the room. The fact that we were able to eliminate all these extra systems, it was the value here in terms of looking at the cost savings that we were able to achieve in this space.
Now, Bob, I wanted to come into this room here because this is one of the rooms that actually isn't pushed into the middle of the floor plan here. This room is still kind of on the outside of the building. And I remember this room in the old office where it was 100 degrees in here all the time. How did we make it where right now, I mean, we could look at the touch panel here to see what temperature it is in here, but I mean, it's probably 70 degrees. Take me through, how did we do that?
One of the requirements that we talked about inside this room was the capability for a truly touchless experience. We all know with our Webex technology that we can walk into a room and would say, hi Bob, hi Sal. We can wirelessly share, we see no cables around. But then we started thinking about how do we extend the capabilities that we built into the foundation of this building in terms of thinking about that touchless experience. So with that being said, I can actually say, okay, Webex, tell the meeting room to put up the shades.
Okay, opening the shades.
And now, Bob, these can actually go down by themselves as well, right? So when the sun starts to come up, we've modeled all that out and these will start coming down?
100%. So not only can we manually control it, but everything we have here is 100% automated shading platform in here. So you mentioned the temperature of this room before. We are in a 1972 building. The building is 50 years old this year. These are still single glazed windows, and this is an east-facing exposure, so we get a lot of sun in the morning. So we think about the balance from a health and wellness standpoint. We thought about not only visual comfort for all of us as individuals, but also the temperature side of it. So utilizing the automation capabilities, we have sensors that are in the shade pocket, looking at light levels coming into this space, but we also 3D modeled this space to understand where the sun is coming in, but also first level reflection. So you think about a city, the first level reflection means sun bouncing off of a neighbor building and then coming into the windows. So we've modeled that all in to be able to control everything from the standpoint of a visual comfort standpoint, but also the thermal side. We know from the data side of it that if we don't have these shades down, it is 10 degrees hotter in this space and this hallway here that's all facing the east side of it. So the capabilities that we were able to get from the standpoint of moving to a PoE platform, we now have the data piece, but also the actionable insights to be able to automate, but also then integrate all of these technologies together. When I just did that voice command, there's actually no Crestron in the middle of any of this. This is now—
I was gonna ask you, I've seen rooms like this before, and usually there's a credenza filled with equipment or a back room. That's not in here?
100% nothing like that in here. It's all now driven from software. It's actually a simple container running in a data center that is controlling all these elements because it was built and designed in an open manner from a network standpoint. So when we talk about the shade piece of it, we can also then do the same thing from a lighting standpoint. So, okay, Webex, tell the meeting room to turn off the lights.
Okay, turning lights off.
I like buttons, and I see there's some buttons on here. So can I actually control this too if I don't feel like talking to the technology? Can I actually push a button on here?
100%. So you'll see, Sal, on here, lights and shades. And you might also see report issue. So the other element that we wanted to think about as we're all returning to this hybrid work model is we want the experience to be delightful. Delightful from the time we walk into the space, day one to year two. And we think about that is that conference rooms are always one of those elements that people will go into and say, oh, that room is broken, I'm just gonna go move to another room. No cases ever get reported. So what we really wanted to drive was the opportunity for us as employees here to be able to report any issues that occur inside of the conference room. So whether it's a calling issue, an AV issue, or a facility issue, we want to capture that and make it easy as possible for all of us to be good stewards of this space.
I wanted to stop in this room because I don't think I've ever seen a room like this before at Cisco, right? Like there's chairs here, there's a little bit of a bar in the back, we've got this whiteboard up front here. There's even USB power I see in the couch that's over here. What's going on with this room?
Yeah, so this is the first room we've ever built like this. So when we think about the way that people are gonna work, we talked a little bit about the journey of people through space. We think brainstorming is gonna happen in this type of room. And so far from the standpoint of building a room this way with high seating in the back, a couch here in the front, and this soft seating here, you automatically walk in and you feel like it's not a typical meeting, but you're here for a purpose of brainstorming, whiteboarding, et cetera. So far, we've seen is that this is one of the most heavily utilized spaces in this new building.
All right, so now we're back in the employee area here, and Bob, what's going on with this? Because none of these desks are actually assigned to anybody. It looks a lot different. There's no cubicles. What did we do to the back room?
So as we talked about before, we rebalanced the floor plate. It's now 70% we space for collaborative moments, 30% for desk work, for me space. So inclusive of that, we used to have 50 manager offices back here. We now moved to 53 collaboration rooms where there's 100% unassigned space in this entire back office.
What I want to show now is what that employee experience is going to be like coming in for the day. So I'm going to go show off the Cisco technology of hot desking. Because everybody's hybrid work, people are going to be working at home, coming into the office, and we need to be very agile. So what I do is I come in for the day, I've got my cell phone, I can place it right on this dock, and now this entire workstation becomes mine for the day. I can select the time if I'm only going to be here for half the day, or I can book it for the entire day. And when I'm done, I just take my phone off, we log out, or it expires at the time I set, and you're all set for the day. So now I do want to talk about one other cool thing here that is kind of up and coming. We're going to go back to Bob Cicero, and he's going to talk about a PoE desk. Tell me about this desk, because I don't think I've ever seen a desk like this before. I see one cable, one yellow cable going into this desk. What's going on with this thing?
So if you think about what we've done here in this building, replatforming to Power over Ethernet, right, 90-watt PoE, what if we can make this desk mobile? When we talk about desk being mobile, there's a height adjustable desk motor in here. Laptops are typically powered and charged by USB-C today. And you're plugging in your phone maybe to a USB-A port. But what we've done is we've totally untethered the workspace now that I've made this desk mobile. Single Ethernet cable below, 90-watt PoE, that's powering the height adjustable desk motor as well as the USB-C and USB-A ports. So the outcome for customers is that now we can have truly agile spaces where I can wheel these around because all of these are also on casters, so I can have a truly flexible workspace.
Well, I think there's some other cool stuff that I really want to check out back here. I saw some huddle rooms and I got a question on a mount. All right, so now we're in this huddle room. Bob, can you tell us a little bit about how these huddle rooms were built? And you got to explain to me this mount, because I've never seen a mount like this before.
Yeah, absolutely. So our huddle rooms are actually 9 foot by 9 foot. This particular seating setting, we have 3 people here because we have the data to show from a Cisco standpoint, the average meeting size has 3 people in it. But also we want to think about flexibility of space. So this is a very natural height if we were going to whiteboard something here on the Webex board. But if we wanted to have a video meeting, we wanted to have the opportunity to use this as a collaboration endpoint, the height of the camera may not be the best for us sitting down at this table. So I can actually use a single finger here and drop this camera down so the camera's at the right height so we can have a great collaborative experience. Again, thinking about hybrid from a remote work standpoint.
That's really cool. And the other thing too is, I'm a little bit shorter than you two, so if I need a whiteboard, I can bring it down just a little bit for me, and then when you need a whiteboard, you can kind of raise it up again.
Personalize the heights out.
I like that. Now I see there's a light button on here too. I think we took a look at that on a touch panel before, but does the board work the exact same way?
It does. So when we think about what we built here, right, in terms of converging all these elements onto the network and making everything PoE, we now have the opportunity to have personalized control everywhere. We now have the opportunity to control everything, no matter where we are in the space, because now it's simply just control from an open API standpoint.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, no extra boxes to put in here, no Crestron, no huge credenza of equipment. So that's really cool. We can actually drive all that directly from the boards. So Bob, thanks a lot for showing me this room. There's one more conference room. I don't even know if we should call it a conference room. It's a very interesting room. There's actually cone speakers that we're gonna go take a look at. Something, again, I've never seen before. Let's go take a look at that room. So Bob, how does this room exist? I don't get it, right? There's no doors. It's open over here, it's open over there. How are we controlling sound in this environment?
So it's a great question. So when we looked at this room and said we want to build a conference room this way, so of course we have all the building controls that we talked about throughout today, but also we started thinking about the sound element. So typically from the standpoint of sound elements, it's not about the people that are talking in the room, it's about what the sound is generated from the remote side, right? Because we're gonna have a video call in here, and how do we not hear the folks that are on video outside because of the open doorways here? So up in the ceiling, there are actually cone audio speakers. They drop a cone of sound over the table in segments. So there's 4 in this room. So think about that table in quarters, and the sound is dropped over those individuals. You will barely hear it outside of here to be able to make sure that we're not causing disturbances outside of here, but have a great experience not only for us in the room, but for others that are on the remote side.
I gotta ask you now, right? Everything in this building is PoE powered. So what do we have? A football field sized data center with switches, ceiling to floor? How are we doing all this?
You'll be shocked, but we do not have a football field size. We have about a half a rack, and you'll see how little size it actually is in the closet, because what we've done is maximize the utilization of that 90 watts of power. That's a lot of power, and we're able to shrink the footprint considerably, considering we did all of this in this 44,000 feet.
That's quite impressive if it's true. Let's go take a look. All right, Bob, I think this is gonna be the last stop on the tour today. I really appreciate you taking the time with us. I see over here a couple switches. Now, I don't see a football field of switches, but I see about 10 switches, and they're not even fully populated. What's going on here? How are we able to power this entire half of the building with just these switches?
So when you think about typical building floor plates, roughly every 20 to 25,000 square feet, you have a closet. So this is for the western side of the space that we just walked in this place. So it's 10 switches, 240 ports, but each one of these is now 90 watts. So when you think about all the power for the lights and the shades and all the control elements for this side of the building, it all collapses back here. And it's simply this stack of 10 switches for a total of 240 ports, but as you mentioned, they're not all utilized.
All right, Bob, I think that's gonna do it for our tour today. And just real quick again, if someone wants to contact you, how would they get a hold of you and your team?
Smartbuilding at Cisco.com will reach the Smartbuilding studio in the Americas.
All right, man, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for the tour. All right, guys, there you have it. The tour of PENN 1, Cisco's new office space that they just redesigned. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching.